UFC 319, Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev just finished, and I'm going to break down the highlights of the card. I'm not going to break down every single fight because I honestly don't think that you care to listen to me break down every single fight, but here are the highlights. Drakkar Klose beat Edson Barboza on the early prelims. Most people probably didn't get a chance to watch that because it was like so early on the whole card, but it was a pretty good back and forth fight, 29-28 decision to Drakkar Klose. At the end of the day, Edson Barboza's at the tail end of his career, right? So most people, I think, could expect that. Alexander Hernandez TKO'd Chase Hooper with like 2 seconds left in the first round. Awesome win for him. Honestly, I thought that Chase Hooper was going to win. Especially, I felt like the UFC was probably putting Chase in there with like a beatable guy because Chase Hooper's fairly marketable for the company. But, you know, he got taken out. Loopy Godinez and Jessica Andrade was actually a really fun fight for a chicks fight. You know, I usually don't enjoy the chicks fight, but this was very back and forth. Jessica Andrade really had Loopy hurt in the third round, but just Loopy did too much in the first 2 rounds and got the 29-28 win. Michał Oleksiejczuk versus Gerald Meerschaert. That's obviously not their names, but when you have these weird last names, what am I meant to do, right? Gerald Meerschaert striking is so bad. It actually, like, looking at RDR, Rainier Derrida's striking in the fight that he had with Gerald Meerschaert shows you how bad RDR's striking really is. He's definitely improved it over the last few fights, but Gerald Meerschaert has not. I mean, when he lost his fight by TKO in the first round as well, but he just does not have a very good chin, and when he doesn't have a good guard, he doesn't have a good chin, his punches don't have any sort of real threat to them or sting to them, so the opponent that doesn't have to fear anything coming back at him. His wrestling is not good. His jiu-jitsu is fantastic, but because of the fact that his wrestling is not good, he can't get there. Like, you know, his opponent sees the takedown coming from a mile away, sprawls, gets him out of there, and then just lights him up with strikes. How easily he went down from the TKO made me feel like Khamzat's win over him wasn't actually that good, and gave me a bit more hope for the Dricus Khamzat fight, which we'll get into in a bit. But yeah, Gerald Meerschaert got TKO'd in 3 minutes. Moving on to Baysangur Susurkaev, Dana White's new absolute favorite fighter from the Contender Series, because he took that fight on 4 days' notice, was, you know, put on a really good show, won the fight, and then took this fight with Eric Nolan on 4 days' notice as well. And he came in oozing confidence. Baysangur Susurkaev. I'm just going to call him Baysangi. Baysangi Susboy. That's his new name. So Baysangi Susboy came in super confident, right? He was like, you know, hands down, like, he was smiling, sort of like joking with the guy, like, yeah, give him 1-2, and then be like, yeah, I'm the man. Like, that was basically what was happening. And then with like 20 seconds left in the first round, Eric Nolan lands a shot right on Baysangi Susboy's temple that has him like, whoa, wobbling crazy, going crazy. You know, follows up to try and get him out of there with the round ending, but wasn't able to. And then round 2 starts, and it did look like Eric Nolan had used a fair bit of his gas trying to get the fight finished in the first round. But also, Baysangi Susboy has some strong strikes to him, because he hit Eric Nolan with an inside leg kick that got such a big reaction immediately. And then he took him down, was able to get the back, and got a rear naked choke, finished the fight. And afterwards, Eric Nolan was like walking around still limping because of that leg kick. So he'll be an interesting fighter to watch. You know, he came in on 4 days' notice. I think him getting tagged like that isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, this should have been a layup fight for him. The odds were insane in Baysangi Susboy's favor. I'll be interested to see who they put him up against next in the middleweight division. Probably some fun fights for him, especially if he turns out to be a real prospect. Anyway, moving on to the main card. Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. This was an interesting fight, guys. So, Kai Asakura's striking is beautiful. It's gorgeous, man. It's so nice. He's just like, boom, boom, boom. And when he does that 1-2 in the hook, it's like you can hear the wind just whoosh, coming off of it, like, and it looks so technically perfect. And then on the other hand, you've got Tim Elliott there fighting like this, like, hey, what you got? Hey, boy, what's happening? You want a punch? Hey, there's a punch for you, boy. Hey, what's going on, brother? You want to fight, bro? Hey, whoa. And it's like, what? You're a veteran UFC fighter, and you're fighting like a comic cartoon version of like that old school English boxer, like, hey, come at me, boys, but like more cartoonish than that. It was ridiculous. Like, his strikes looked pathetic, especially in contrast to Kai Asakura's beautiful striking. But Kai Asakura's grappling is so bad. Guys, it's so bad. It's so bad. I don't even understand how he is a UFC fighter or an MMA fighter with like a 20-5 record. Because, you know, Tim Elliott got a takedown in the first round, super easy. But right at the end, I don't even know why he was waiting so long to try and go for a takedown when you're striking. It was so comically bad. But in the second round, again, you know, he's sort of getting outstruck. He's putting more pressure on Kai Asakura, but then he goes for a takedown. They sort of scramble, and then he grabs a guillotine choke that he turns into like a mounted guillotine and gets the tap. Boom. Like, not hard. Did not look hard at all. Looked like the type of thing that you learn how to defend in your first month of doing jiu-jitsu. Like, hey, is a very obvious guillotine coming. Oh, it's getting tight. Yeah, he's putting it on. It's not like, this isn't Brian Ortega doing this guillotine, or, you know, Vicente Luque or Khamzat Chimaev or any of these guys that have these like beautiful chokes. You know, Islam Makhachev, like, it's not that. It's Tim Elliott slowly but surely getting a mounted guillotine and then just holding you until you tap. Like, it was pretty ugly, honestly, but it just shows how bad Kai Asakura's grappling really is. I don't know what you do with him, because any fighter with half a brain is going to just go, oh, this is the easiest path to victory here. I go take him down and I win. Like, he's never going to be a champion. Maybe he can just be name value for some of your up-and-coming guys who beat him, but it's going to look like a pretty tan name eventually, because everyone knows that his takedown defense and grappling is really, really, really bad. Anybody that fights Kai Asakura from this point on is going to look like Khamzat Chimaev because of how bad Kai Asakura is. Anyway, moving on to Michael Venom Page versus Jared Cannonier. We all want to see some like MVP highlight reel knockouts. We want to see just like guy swings for air and then just gets caught with like a knee and an elbow and a punch and a kick and two more elbows and an uppercut and a downwards knee and a stomp to the face from midair, all in one big beautiful combination, and then the guy is like blown into a million pieces. But we're not getting that. We're getting like, hey, I'm going to stay out here. I'm staying out here. You can't touch me. Hey, look how you can't touch me. I'm so far away from you. Oh, look, you look stupid. Ha, 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 ha. And then, bang, 1-2, that'll drop the guy. In this case, Jared Cannonier. This is what happened in the first round. You know, he, off balance, and bang, just catches him with the right hand. And then Jared Cannonier gets knocked down, and then he gets back up while MVP sort of aura farms on him. Is like, yeah, just settle down, don't worry. That's it. And then that's the first round. One big piece of action. Other than that, Jared Cannonier basically held him against the fence for a bit. Second round, same thing. I'm going to stay out here. Haha, you can't get me. Haha, you can't get me. Look how far away I am from you. Oh, but I can get you, bang. Haha, you can't get me though. Haha, bang, bang. Haha, you can't get me. And then in the second round, it was like 1-2, caught Jared Cannonier good. And then a third one that was like sort of a punch, sort of a push that like pushed Jared Cannonier over and probably looked like another knockdown to the judges. And sort of was a knockdown. And then Again, Cannonier holds him up against the fence for like half the round, doesn't do anything, but because of the few moments of striking that Michael Venom Page did that were really effective, he still wins those rounds. And then in the third round, Jared Cannonier like gets there was this weird takedown thing that happened where I think they sort of both went to attack at the same time, and MVP got himself off balance and then like fell to the ground, and Jared Cannonier just like jumped on top of him because he wanted to have some control time, and he basically like just controlled him on the ground for the next 4 minutes, threw some strikes, but did try to go for a Kimura, but there was nothing like solid, nothing where you're like, oh no, like Michael Venom Page is in danger here, and it's like, that you lost that. Actually, I don't think that Jared Cannonier did think that he lost both of the first rounds, because when the judges came with the scorecard and they said 29-28 to MVP, Jared Cannonier was like, what? I think a lot of these fighters are going, if I just hold the other guy up against the fence for more than half the round, I win the round. Look, Mario Bautista does it. Magomed Ankalaev does it. Gabriel Bonfim does it against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And even look, Khamzat Chimaev, the king of our division, does it as well. Again, we'll get back to that in a second. But moving on to Carlos Prates versus Geoff Neal. This was an exciting fight in the anticipation, because Carlos Prates, the nightmare, is just scary, man. He's so scary. You never know what's going to happen in there. But at the same time, Geoff Neal's no pushover. Like, he's going to go in there and throw strikes, and he's really going to brawl. So this one was, there was a lot of anticipation for it. And then it was nice. Like, Geoff Neal was definitely holding his own. He was landing some good strikes, but Carlos Prates was landing the crisper strikes, piecing him up a bit at range. Like, good leg kicks that were getting reactions, good kicks to the head, spinning kicks, good punches, and just everything. When Carlos Prates throws it, it's thrown with really good intention, and it lands very precisely. And because of that, it just, you can hear it, you can tell that it hurts a lot more, because it's just properly impacting the desired target area. Anyway, first round's really good. They're going sort of back and forth. Again, it feels like Carlos Prates is getting the better of it overall. And then with like 3 seconds left in the round, Carlos Prates throws this spinning back elbow that catches Geoff Neal on the temple real bad. And Geoff just like falls over on the ground, doesn't know where he is, and Carlos Prates just like walk-off KOs him. Literally, they called it with 1 second left, 4 minutes 59 seconds into the round. Those fighting nerds really know how to style on the guys that they just beat, and that was definitely one of those moments. I actually feel like if Carlos Prates had tried to follow Geoff Neal to the ground and, follow up with some ground and pound, Herb Dean might have, I think that was the ref, the referee might have not stopped it, because they would have been trying to see if the guy's going to be able to fight back, and then the round would have ended. But because he did the walk-off KO, it actually ended, which is, interesting. Anyway, that was the Carlos Prates fight. It was really fun. He also had a really great call-out after his fight. Who, what, when, where, why. I didn't really have the why, but he wants to fight in October, in Brazil, at the October event that they're having there, the fight night that Charles Oliveira is going to be on, and he wants to fight Leon Edwards. Now, a lot of people want to see MVP versus Carlos Prates, and MVP in the press conference afterwards said that he wants to fight Carlos Prates on that October card in Brazil. So either way, we've got the when, the where, we've got the what, which is, in front of Brazil, and I imagine that's part of the why as well, as like being able to do that in front of your home country. So there's a lot there. Why Leon Edwards? I don't really get it. I mean, obviously he's up in the rankings, but he maybe could have done a better job of saying like why he wanted to fight Leon Edwards specifically, because I do think that without that why part, it's going to be very easy for people to now be like, well, just fight MVP. You didn't really care about Leon Edwards. You just wanted someone that was up in the rankings, and MVP just beat a number 9 guy, so this will be great for you. Something like that. Either way, I'd love to see Carlos Prates knock out Leon Edwards, honestly. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I'd also love to see MVP versus Carlos Prates, but I could see it being very similar to the Ian Gary Carlos Prates fight, especially if it's only 3 rounds. But, I mean, Carlos presents like a lot more danger than Jared Cannonier does for MVP. And because of that, MVP, they're both going to be leaving and finding openings for each other to be able to get each other. So that will be a more of a chess match, and be very interesting to see how a guy like Carlos Prates with that striking acumen does to stop that movement of MVPs. Because honestly, that movement's so frustrating, man. Like, I know we were done with the MVP Jared Cannonier fight, but like, if I'm Jared Cannonier, I'm like, motherfucker, stop moving, stop it. This is so annoying. Like, how do you train for that? How do you find a guy that can like actually train with you like that and be able to just like stop that movement? Anyways, DDP was frustrated in his Khamzat fight. Again, we're just about to get to that, but Jared Cannonier, I felt like had to almost be more frustrated. When you just throw like 3 or 4 punches and all of them miss. I think he had like a 20 to 25% strike landed rate, and most of those strikes that were landed were probably in the clinch against the fence when Jared Cannonier was like kneeing Michael Page in the thighs and stuff like that, like doing no real damage. But anyway, so that was the Carlos Prates Geoff Neal fight. He had a spinning back elbow with 1 second left to KO Geoff Neal. And speaking of spinning back elbow KOs, Leroy Jenkins. The real ones, remember. Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. That was a fun fight. These guys that come from these other scenes, though, they think that they're like the hottest thing on the yard, and then they come in and they fight someone from the UFC, and it's just not the same. I had a friend who had a parlay, and the final fight on his parlay, 6 fights. He had Loopy Godinez, he had the Gerald Meerschaert fight, I think those were the first 2, or something along those lines. And then he had Tim Elliott to win, Michael Venom Page to win, Carlos Prates to win, and Lerone Murphy to win. Right? So everything had come up. He just had the Lerone Murphy one left, and he was thinking about cashing out of his parlay. And I was like, man, don't cash out of the parlay. Like, all you have to do is have Lerone Murphy win. Aaron Pico is 13-4. This is his first fight in the UFC. Why do we think that he's going to win? And Aaron Pico also looked very nervous in the cage. Now, I actually don't think he was as nervous as he looked. Or maybe he was, because he was coming with a lot of pressure. And I know that that's his fight style. I know that he likes to box and get in close and just, break that range. And obviously, Lerone Murphy's the bigger, taller guy. So you have to be more committed to doing that, right? But he was like plodding forward, and leaving himself quite open. He just wanted to hurt Lerone Murphy. He wanted to put the damage on him. And early in the fight, like 30 seconds in, it did look like he hurt Lerone Murphy with a shot that sort of wobbled him and had him drop. And then Aaron Pico then just like started to try and swarm on Lerone Murphy a bit and add up the pressure. But anyway, as he's following Lerone around, Lerone's just trying to get some space and get some shots off and things like that. But Aaron Pico is being super readable, right? Like, he's just coming forward, like just walking at you with this sort of guard that's not fully up and tight. It's not the DDP guard where you like grab your whole head, and it's not even like the Elliott. It's not like the Sean Strickland guard either, where you're doing the Philly shell and you can fully cover up and shoulder roll. It's sort of like down here, and there's like a guard up here, but I guess there wasn't, because as he's following Lerone Murphy in, Lerone does his own spinning back elbow KO to hit the other temple, the right temple, and Aaron Pico was out cold. Bad, like real bad. They were like having to hold his head and sort of hold him down, because he's like, his fighter spirit is like trying to get him to get up, but he's like, it was scary how bad he was knocked out by that. But Lerone Murphy did a great job, kept the space, used his range, used his distance, and then just exploited this really bad technique of Aaron Pico's. That clearly you can get away with on the regional scene against guys that aren't at that same type of high level. But if you just like walk down an undefeated guy like Lerone Murphy, yeah, he's going to find the spot to get you. Anyway, Lerone Murphy did a really good job afterwards as well of calling out Volk, but also, getting the crowd engaged. Very good performance for Lerone Murphy. I'm glad that he sort of got his flowers, as the ladies say, or as the youth say these days. He definitely got his flowers. I'd love to see that fight. I think Volkanovski's down for that fight as well. What has happened to Movsar? I think he was injured or something like that, so I guess he's like out of title talk, and he'll probably have to have another fight before he can do the title. But, I mean, if you were going to give Movsar or Aaron Pico the title fight, if they won that fight, then you have to give it to Lerone. Who else are you giving it to at featherweight at this point? Let Movsar fight Gene Silva or something like that. Anyway, that was the Lerone Murphy fight. Very fun. Main card at this point has been a lot of fun. We've had Tim Elliott guillotine choke Kai Asakura. We've had MVP styling on Jared Cannonier and making him look silly for 15 minutes, which was like just sort of a nice break. And then we had Carlos Prates and Lerone Murphy do back-to-back spinning back elbow KOs in the first round against aggressive, powerful opponents. And then we move into the main event. Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis. Man, what a bummer letdown of a fight. And when I say bummer, I'm talking about Khamzat Chimaev that would basically just hold Dricus in a body lock and bum him the whole fight. It was like, guys, what is this? I felt like I was watching Brokeback Mountain for like 30 minutes, man. It was crazy. I was wrong. When I made my initial prediction, I thought that Khamzat was going to have to go all out, try and finish in that first round. Like, why would he ever switch up his game plan? Like, there's so much doubt that comes with switching up your game plan like that. And he would have to expend all of his energy trying to finish Dricus, and he's not going to be able to finish Dricus because it's not that easy. And then it would just be over for him. And this would be the first learning lesson of Khamzat Chimaev's career. I thought that was really what was going to happen. And I was really wrong. I was completely incorrect. Khamzat Chimaev made this look easy, which is not a good thing from an entertainment perspective, because in a way it sort of felt like, okay, are you playing with your food here? What are you doing? Like, what is this? I'm not even watching a fight. So let me tell you what happened. They start the first round, for about 10 seconds. They sort of look like they're about to strike. And then obviously Khamzat Chimaev does what he always does, and he shoots for the takedown. And then as he gets the takedown, he gets into side control and then into a crucifix really quick. And then he just starts like doing these tiny little noogie punches to the head. Because, to be fair, Dricus Du Plessis is like hiding his head into Khamzat's body so that every time the punch comes, it's like hitting him in the back of the head, where the ref's like, hey, you can't hit him in the back of the head. So Khamzat's trying to just like find this space in his body where he can get Dricus's ear and just like do something to him. But he's also got him in crucifix, super dominant position, and DDP can't get out. His arm was like trapped in Dricus's leg like this, and Dricus's legs were just like squeezing together to stop it from being able to get moved out of there. And with his hands, obviously, he's holding his other arm and then just raining it down. So DDP like couldn't get out of that spot for multiple minutes. And then eventually he was able to get out. And as soon as he gets out, Khamzat Chimaev just goes for the takedown again. Grabs the body lock, holds him up against the cage, and starts kneeing him in the thighs relentlessly. Dricus Du Plessis' thighs, man, they're going to be sore. He's going to have some bruising on those thighs, man. It might be hard for him to sit. Dana White was like, it's going to be an uncomfortable ride back to South Africa. Could you imagine the plane flight? Having to sit in first-class chairs on legs that have been tenderized by Khamzat Chimaev's knees for 25 minutes. He's ready to get, like, cooked. They could put him in the oven. He'd be like a nice tender piece of meat after all that tenderizing that Khamzat did to him. And that was first round. Yeah, just hold the body lock, knees to the thighs, knees to the thighs, knees to the thighs. And gets up with about 5 seconds left. Round's over. Okay, that was round one. Dricus goes back to his corner. He's like, it's all good. I felt no damage whatsoever. I feel fine. I still feel good, and I have energy and all that type of stuff. Okay, great. Go in. Second round starts. Takedown again immediately. Okay, great. So now this one was just like all fence control. I believe for the second round was like all fence control, just over and over again. Different positions. DDP tries to get up and you're back down. And then you try and get back up and you're back down. And you try to... Khamzat sort of like moves over to your back, and so you turn over so that he's not in your back, and then now he's kneeing the other side of your body, and it's just... He smothered him, right? Like, a lot of people in my comments have been like, Khamzat mauled DDP. No. Khabib mauled Conor. Okay? Islam mauled Charles Oliveira. Right? Merab Dvalishvili mauled Peter Yan. This wasn't a mauling. Khamzat Chimaev has mauled many guys. Like, pretty much every other fight that he's ever had, other than maybe Kamaru and Gilbert Burns, you would call all of those a mauling. This was a smothering. He smothered Dricus Du Plessis. It's not to take anything away from it. It's not to say that it's not impressive what he did. Smothering Dricus Du Plessis for 25 minutes and getting no answer in response is very impressive. Like, it really is. It's just not really fighting. It's wrestling for 25 minutes. Like, there wasn't much damage, right? And those fights are meant to be scored on damage. And it's like, what am I meant to do to score that? Like, obviously score it to Khamzat because he landed 500,000 strikes and Dricus Du Plessis landed 14. But 499,992 of them were knees to the leg or little noogie punches from crucifix, right? Round 3, round 4, same stuff. Holding against the cage, hold him on the ground, body lock, never giving up the body lock for an opportunity to do damage, an opportunity to finish the fight. Would occasionally look like he was maybe trying to get a choke, but it really felt like that was more so that Marc Goddard didn't stand them up. There was a moment, I think it was in round 4, it might have been round 5, where Marc Goddard did stand them up while Khamzat had Dricus Du Plessis back, again in the body lock against the cage. Which is interesting, because it's like, should you break that up? I mean, DDP's in a really bad position, but also Khamzat's not using the position. He's just stalling for that time. Like, those knees to the thigh aren't damaging shots. You're not... If the whole goal of the fight is meant to be to do damage to the opponent, and it seems like grapplers recently have just figured out this hack where they can just hold you and not have to do that much damage, and they'll still win because they were the more dominant person and you couldn't do anything the whole fight, right? But is that fighting? I actually am almost... Maybe the solution is that refs should break it up more frequently. If there's not like a clear progression to damage happening quickly, we need to stop that. Now, I'm not saying about this fight, because again, honestly, it was very impressive, and Khamzat Chimaev is obviously the new champ, and I don't know who you're going to get to beat him at this point. There are a few names I could think of, like Kamaru Usman. I'd be interested to see him come up and do a 5-round championship fight. Rania Derrida with the grappling. Other than that, I just see the same thing happening to everybody. I'm interested to see how much Khamzat fights. I know he wants to fight in Abu Dhabi. It would be cool to see look, if Khamzat was fighting every 2 weeks, even if it was boring like this, at least I'd respect him more for fighting every 2 weeks. and, risking the belt and all of that type of stuff. But it's just, honestly, it was a disappointing end to the card. Not just because I wanted DDP to win and I thought that DDP was going to win. And maybe if I had money on Khamzat Chimaev, or if I, really cared about Khamzat Chimaev, or if I had picked him to win, maybe I would have been more happy with the bout. But it would have been weird to be happy for it. I would have been like, yeah, Khamzat, keep doing what you're doing, which is not letting Dricus do absolutely anything. And also, by extension, you're not really doing anything, so that you can win this fight on a technicality of points. Like, I'm never interested in that. That's not what I'm interested in. And the first 3 years of me learning any combat sports was all grappling. I love grappling. I really do. I love watching what Khabib's able to do to guys like Conor or Michael Johnson or Justin Gaethje, where he started to see damage coming in those leg strikes and he knew he had to do something about it real quick. He almost finished him at the end of the first round, but then he gets that takedown off of that leg kick and, turns it into an armbar, then a triangle choke, and chokes Justin Gaethje out, boom, record time. That's beautiful. That's so beautiful to watch. And in terms of damaging, I mean, that is the prime example of why we have combat sports. It's to show, in a real fight with no referee and nothing going on, who's leaving there alive. And, Khabib always showed that it was him. In this fight with Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus Du Plessis, I didn't really feel like, if there was no referee here and no timer, and these guys were just fighting in a street somewhere forever, that DDP would have been in serious danger of getting severely damaged. I would actually be very interested to understand what would happen in that situation. Now, also, to be fair, in a street fight, Khamzat's doing what he's doing to Dricus Du Plessis. He's smashing his face into the concrete and stuff like that with some of those throws to the ground. But you did notice that by the fifth round, those takedowns were way less effective. Dricus was falling into mount on top of Khamzat a couple of times. He went for the guillotine. He did the Dustin Poirier, tried to go for the gilly in round 5 because he had no other shot at getting something to go. So then he ends up on his back again. There was a bit of striking in round 5, and DDP was obviously getting the better of it. But again, as soon as Khamzat noticed that DDP was getting the better of it, just, okay, I'm going to take you down and stay safe and do what I want. Arman Tsarukyan was in Khamzat's corner, and if this is what we can expect from their style of game planning, I never want to see him fight Ilya. Not because of protect Ilya, protect. I don't want to see every division's champion be a fucking grinder, hugger, cage pressing homo. It's what the hell is going on here, man? It's, and I'm not, my brother's gay. I'm not saying it like that. I know that came out a bit harsh, but it's okay, Magomed Ankalaev in light heavyweight gets the belt off of Alex Pereira, a guy who is knocking people out cold constantly by holding him up against the fence for 5 rounds. Okay, great. Middleweight, Khamzat Chimaev does the same thing to Dricus Du Plessis, a guy who is constantly in entertaining fights, and just gets smothered for 5 rounds. Dricus basically said it felt like he was being under a blanket, which what it looked like. It was Khamzat just wouldn't let him go. He wouldn't let go of that body lock. He wouldn't do anything to try and throw down more strikes in a more aggressive way, do more damage, get a finish. And there was never an idea of getting a finish in this fight for Khamzat. At welterweight, you've got Islam versus JDM coming up soon. At least Bilal, when he beat Leon Edwards, was more... That was a mauling. Again, that was a mauling. What Sean Brady did to Leon Edwards, that was a mauling. There's a difference between that and the smothering that Khamzat Chimaev did. But I would not be surprised if Islam Makhachev's game plan with JDM becomes, not maybe his first game plan, but if things aren't going the way that he wants, to hold him up against the fence, maybe get a takedown, keep him in a position where he's it's a disadvantageous position for JDM, and just hold him there and do very little damage for 3 or more rounds, and then you win the fight, right? Who knows, but wouldn't be surprised. In lightweight, we've got Ilia Topuria, thank God. And again, Armin's praying to be the guy that comes and smothers Ilia out of his title. It's like, who wants to watch that? Who cares about these, like, the Armin fans that I feel like are also the Khamzat Chimaev fans, and I'm not saying like people that like Khamzat Chimaev or people that like Armin Tsarukyan, though I don't know many people that actually like Armin Tsarukyan, but I'm talking about like the dedicated, dogmatic fans of some of these guys, where it's like you say something nice about Khamzat or Khabib or Islam or Armin, and you got a ton of great comments from these people in your comments feed. You say the slightest thing bad about them, they hate you. You're an idiot. They are so fervently tribal around backing their guy, which is cool. I mean, like, look, that's what fighting is. Don't get me wrong. It's like, that's one of the biggest things that we all get from it, is these titans that we're able to have this like parasocial relationship with, right? But the point is simply, do you really want your champions to be Magomed Ankalaev, Khamzat Chimaev, Islam fucking Makhachev, Armin Tsarukyan, Movsar Evloev, Merab Dvalishvili? Like, oh my God, is every belt just going to be owned by a wrestler that can't damage anyone, but instead just wants to like hold them there because the other person can actually damage them with the other martial arts that they've learned in their life? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you do. I think that the referee needs to start splitting it up more if there's not like a clear attempt to progress to doing damage. You need to be progressing to doing damage. Otherwise, what are we doing here? What if I run around what if I just run away from you for 5 minutes? And we just do that for 5 rounds. I guess that eventually the referee's going to start saying, hey, action. But that's the same thing. It's like, just action. We need action. Whatever. Frustrating card. Again, the whole card was a lot of fun. I enjoyed watching all the fights. I even enjoyed watching the Khamzat DDP one. I was really hoping that like DDP could just pull something together in the 5th round. Like when the Gilly happened, I was like praying. I was like, please, for Dustin. Do it for Dustin. But yeah, no, that's not it. Anyway, that was UFC 319. It was a fun card. Let me know what you thought. And I got all of the fights on the main card right, picks-wise, except for Khamzat Chimaev DDP. And I'm annoyed about that, but I also feel pretty good that I got 4 out of 5 today. I think the Tim Elliott beating Kai Asakura pick and the Lerone Murphy beating Aaron Pico pick, good picks. Carlos Prates, MVP, I think most people are going to get that, but I know I went different to a lot of other MMA creators on those two, so I'm pretty stoked. Anyway, let me know what you thought. If you think I'm a big dumb idiot for picking DDP or for thinking that he was actually going to win, let me know in the comments. I don't mind seeing a bit of the hate and we can talk about it. Anyway, see you guys.